And I'll get the screen up, and then we will hit start. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 256 of our episodic levels of years of happiness and joy. With us today, special treat as always, is Melissa Cavanaugh with Fuel Travel, giving us words of wisdom, data insights, and general prognostication as to life, the universe, and the cosmic reality of our understanding of the world as we know it. Yeah, well, nothing, no small feat for you.
No pressure at all.
No pressure
No
at all.
pressure.
Okay, good. Also with us is Mr. Ben Hanley with 3 and 6 Agency out of the strange place across the pond. Small island, can't miss it, just south of Ireland, I think.
Yeah, you should remember. We used to own you guys.
Yeah. We used to be connected in some capacity or something.
Yeah, and you guys went downhill when we left.
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. Right now, I say yes, we have. Yes, take us back, please.
Wait. They're not in much better shape right now.
Okay, whatever. Okay.
I was going to say, I'm talking a big talk, that guy.
We want to join Canada. We want Canada to take us over. But they're doing way better than we are.
Even Scotland.
Also with Mr. Edward St. Onge from Flip2, and also Mr. Dean Schmidt with, gosh, you have big long titles now. You have metasearchmarketing.com and also Basecamp Meta, right?
There you go.
Yep. Hey, Kat, and also just now joining us, Ms. Kat Muhammad with as Director of Education for Alhoa. Hi, Kat.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Thanks for joining. So, Melissa, please give us words of wisdom, inspiration, insights, and all the cool stuff that you know.
Well, I feel like the words of wisdom I'm about to say are already old, even though they're only a week old. I feel like everything's changed since all these words were spewed from my keyboard. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing. But anywho, so we at Fuel have released the 6th version of our consumer sentiment study. This was sent out on June 18th, which apparently it's July already. So it feels like it was a really long time ago. We waited 3 weeks. We had been doing these every 2 weeks, but we waited 3 weeks on this one because we felt like the email list was kind of getting a little fatigued and we were getting less and less responses. So we waited a little bit longer on this one. We did get a slightly better response on this one. So we had over 6,500 responses. Not too shabby. Overall, we're still seeing safety just overwhelmingly at the top of everybody's concerns of all things related to travel. In our little word cloud, when we ask people what they think of when they think about travel now, safety has been the top word since the first time we sent this survey out, and that hasn't changed.
Which is really funny because you've seen this in your market and we've seen it in our other beach markets. Most of our hoteliers are telling us how little care their travelers are taking to socially distance, to be safe, to not do high risk things. We're just getting constant feedback from our open properties that like the only people really taking care are their staff, and the majority, vast majority of their travelers are acting like nothing's different.
Nothing's happening.
And actually are quite mad when something is different, which is funny to hear that when you do look at all the consumer research talking about how much people care about safety. It doesn't seem like that's lining up with who's actually traveling.
So I wonder if those that travel have just thrown safety to the wind, and the people who are still cautious are the ones not traveling.
Or sitting home taking surveys.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. On paper, it's very easy if somebody says, would you prefer this triple cheeseburger or this farm burger over here? Yeah, healthier choice you can easily select on paper, but when it comes to actually doing it, it might be different.
I think a little bit of that is the herd mentality, though, too. As you're planning for your vacation, you're sitting in your chair looking at your laptop. Right now, I'm thinking about, I want to make sure the place is clean and safe, and I'm thinking about all those things. You get there, and everybody's hanging out by the pool, and you're like, what the hell? Let's go hang out by the pool.
Well, Myrtle Beach has just passed a mask ordinance as of yesterday that went into effect yesterday, which is always a blast. Let's put in an ordinance and make it live the same day. So
and right
what that
before
feedback is
an
gonna be.
incredibly busy travel weekend.
Mm.
Oh, it's a fun town I live in. So I'm very curious to see what the market here is going to show now that there are mandates for safety precautions. If we see a further decline in bookings or people canceling or whatever the case might be.
That will be interesting to see because, again, what we're seeing both in your market and other markets is whenever something does happen that shakes loose some cancellations, there tends to be reservations right behind them taking their place. It's almost like you're shuffling the audiences that find whatever you're doing acceptable or unacceptable.
That was my gut instinct because we talk about this internally all the time. And there was this debate of, is this going to turn people off? And I was like, you know what? The people that it's turning off, there's going to be another group right behind them that are like, yes, more safety for me, so I'm going to go now. Right. Theoretically. I'm talking out of my butt right now. I don't know what I'm saying.
Welcome to the show.
I'm just
Melissa, you finally broached over to the side of where we were. I was like, sure, we can throw everything up on the board. Who the heck, it's
But talking for 250 something episodes.
Facts? We don't need no stinking facts.
And it's the same over in the UK too. With the news was covering pictures of people in a heat wave just crowding the beaches without elbow room at all. And then the media flipped to say, why is the government still paying to furlough all these staff to help them socially distance and not being in the workplace, when at the weekend everyone's just going to the beaches to touch each other and share ice creams and cutlery. So there's a reckoning coming out.
What's going on over there? I don't even let my own kids share my ice cream. I wouldn't let some stranger at a beach. What?
Share an ice cream van, not necessarily the same cone.
Oh, okay.
No,
and then they're sharing silverware too? Like what?
They're washing it, but now the new thing is that everyone has to bring their own silverware to restaurants. So that's one of the ideas that people have, is to bring your own cutlery to a restaurant to reduce infection.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Wow.
don't get me wrong. As a
Well, I can say I've got mine in my inside pocket just now.
well, yeah, a little bit of a Joey moment there, pulling a fork out of your inside jacket, going, "So what are we eating here?"
I'm not sure who
I do
it
have my
was.
own bottle up. That's
Go on, Adele.
I'm not sure who it was. I think it could have been Anthony Milcori, but he said, if you really want to be responsible, bring your own sheets to your hotel. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah,
You
or
know,
just
you
bring
really
your own
wanna feel
sheets.
But
your
what
own
about-
bed,
what
or just
about-
stay at home? Like,
What about all of the studies now that have shown you're not going to catch it through touching things? It's going to be transferred through airborne.
I think Laura just said facts. We don't need no stinking
No.
facts.
And for every study that says that, there's another study that says that it's going to live on the surface for 14 days.
Oh no, they're saying it lives. It's you're not going to catch it that way. Has been what the newer studies have been saying, which is sure it's on surfaces. You're not going to get it that way. You're going to get
are
it.
we
through-
back to the biofilm again now, Ed?
Yeah, biofilm. Evidently, biofilm is not. It's gross, but evidently in this case, it's the least likely way you're going to catch this.
But
I
it
think
is a
really the
matter of
only way to be
perception.
completely safe is to find a nice spot outdoors to live with no possessions whatsoever. And then you will be guaranteed, as long as there aren't other people in your space, not to catch COVID-19.
You've never seen summer in the UK.
Unless everybody has an idea, Lily, and we're back to that beach thing where, like, I had a great idea to come to the middle of, oh, shoot, so did everyone else. Oh, well. Just don't touch my ice cream.
From the whole convention, it got moved to virtual. We had so many surveys going out on the feelings, just to test the waters with our members and board, etc. And a lot of the folks that I spoke to, they were on the fence of their own safety, but quite a few of them are more concerned with what they would come back and potentially put their family at risk, whoever else was in the house. They were fine risking themselves. It was more so everybody else that they might potentially infect.
Khadija, when did you check that? Was it the beginning of lockdown or the end? Because at the beginning, you want to spend time with your family. At the end, you might want to be pushing them out to infected areas. You know, not me. I love my family. I'm just saying the deposit rate has gone up.
Asking for a friend?
Yeah, that's the one, Lauren. I promise I won't use your name though.
I think to add to what Melissa's pointing out to, though, the survey information is and what Cass said, it's easy to put on paper what you think should be the proper way of answering it or what you would willfully want to have. But unfortunately, two real strong dynamics have come into play. One, there's a lack of authority as to the true details that we trust. I mean, as Ed pointed out, do we get it off of surfaces or don't we get it on surfaces? You know, they didn't tell us to wear masks at the beginning. Why? Because there wasn't enough masks. Now they're telling us to wear a mask. And now the mask situation has been politicized. Are you a Democrat or Republican? You burn your mask if you're a Republican and you wear your mask if you're a Democrat. It's God's will that we should not have masks, which I ask, well, in that case, why are you wearing clothes? Because God didn't make you with clothes either. But those go far too far. The thing is that we have such a mixture of common sense or lack thereof and the authority of knowing what it is we're actually dealing with. And that ambiguity has created the scenario in our industry. You have this blend of people that are willing to travel under certain conditions, but then they necessarily don't need those conditions to be present. They just need to feel like they're there, and they ignore them on their own. Like you said, they'll go to the pool because everybody else goes to the pool. Meanwhile, the staff wears a mask, and if you don't wear a mask, somebody's taking a picture of it saying these guys aren't wearing masks from the person that's not wearing a mask. You know, so there's this mixture of how it actually is perceived versus the reality of its usability. And I think
my favorite though is the people who wear the mask with their nose out.
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant.
Chin out, yeah.
Yeah.
You can find all sorts of great mask fails online if you're so inclined. I like the one that cut a hole in the center to make it easier to breathe.
It's easy to get the beer to go, isn't it? I thought that was the lift up flap for the beer. And put it
so
back
to
down
make
again.
sure that Melissa joins us for volume number 7, I just want to point out this all ties back to question number 4. I don't know, maybe that's where you guys already were. But I really like that you guys included fear of other guest interactions and fear of the common areas separately from fear of the guest rooms, because I think that everybody's really been focused on guest room cleanliness in most of their marketing.
Right.
But in reality, it's the common areas and the interaction with other guests that people are more concerned about. So
you will not hear a single hotel talk about the other stuff because there is no real solve for the other stuff. They can control the guest room. They can't control, the people roaming their halls. And,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I heard that.
And then do more with the common areas.
Yeah, the CDC's coming out with guidelines for elevators too. So, I mean, as more time goes, more regulations.
I mean, more than just hold your breath and wait until the door opens?
Mm-hmm.
I do that anyways in elevators. I always have.
When there's, over 3 floors, it gets a little challenging.
Over
That's why
20.
you always look like you're out of breath, Ed.
Yeah, because
you look like you just ran up the stairs using the elevator.
Right, and it's mainly because I had to hold my breath for the 17 floors that had 6 stops.
Exactly.
Just on a side note, just real quick. So I have a hotel in Vancouver that has multi-floors and it has a very small elevator. And one thing that we did on the floors is every 3rd floor we put a water station and snacks in the stairwell, and they actually like them because some people don't mind shortcutting it. Not that they're going to come down all the floors, but they'll do 2. Remember the old rule in hotels? Was it the 1 up, 2 down at least for all staff? And you don't rather than use the elevator. Jump on the stairs and you go 1 up or 2 down if you need to get somewhere. Well, the guests, we're offering them the incentive of saying, hey, if you do want to use the stairs for convenience, and we also, negative vented the stairwell so that it's a constant flow compared to the elevator, which it still has negative airflow, but it's smaller space. For those who like to kind of shortcut it down, we put little snacks and water stations, and they've been writing in their comments that they really appreciate that little extra. Hey, this is a nice surprise, nice touch. Thank you, Sam. So just weird little piece there.
So now you should take pictures of the staff holding signs. You can do it, and
you can do it.
I like the Rocky soundtrack.
Create your own Fitbit challenge for all your guests within your app. Yeah.
But it's dividing hotels now, though, isn't it? It's your differentiator used to be your amenities, your location, the thing that you were going to stay at, the hotel, the guests, the staff. Now this whole, the difference in people's perception as what is safe, what isn't safe. We've got mixed messages. Everybody, even people on this show right now, will all have different variations of what we personally will feel comfortable with. This is now becoming that hotels are having to pitch themselves somewhere in that spectrum. Are you completely blasé with the rules? Are you going to relax them? Maybe not blasé, or are you going to be uber strict and have the most cleanliness or absurd rules that you can possibly think of? And it's now becoming where in that spectrum is a hotel going to pitch themselves and position themselves? And well, I mean, only time is going to tell, but it's a really difficult one if you're a hotel owner.
Well, it's interesting. So one of the regional marketing people that I work with quite a bit, they were asking me kind of my take on how should they present and market the new stuff they're doing. And I've given the advice to anyone who's asked that I think you should make it easily found to anyone who cares, but you should not push it. And they took that advice. So I asked him a few weeks after open, they've been running at capacity. I asked him to, look at how many people are actually going to the pages that explain it. It's almost no one. The fact I like realistically, I think the fact that they see an option for their, new cleanliness standards or however they labeled it is the checkbox enough. People don't care. People just the people traveling right now don't care. The people
that's the caveat. People right now
and honestly, I got to tell you too, I still think a lot of the people who say they care right now, they say they care because they haven't yet stepped out. Stuart's talked about this multiple times. The first time you went to the grocery store during lockdown, you were freaked out and hypervigilant. The 14th time you were back to whatever. I think we're going to experience a lot of that. And I think it'll end up being a very small audience of people who hold on to this and really, like it's important to them. And I think half of those people are because they're high risk, right? Like this is life or death for them or life or death for a loved one of theirs. But just human behavior is not to take care of yourself. I mean, that's why there's a diet industry. That's why there's, there's a vitamin industry. That's, people just don't do what's good for them. They do, what they're either used to or what pleases them.
I would add to that, and this is something that's down to home right now down here. There was a lot of people that were just almost defiant in their perspective of this stuff. This is bull BS. This is a hoax, whatever their context of whatever their perception of it was, until it hit home. Down here, we're at almost 25% positive testing right now. So 1 out of 4 people are getting that are being tested are positive with this. And then a lot of very popular restaurants down here who have musicians and so forth. Well, the musicians got sick and died. And they were pleading out to the people that were there. I hugged you last night at Thursday at the Monkey Bar or at the whatever Backstreet Bar, and please go get tested. And people from that have died. And all of a sudden, all the restaurants go, oh my gosh, this is real. Shut down. They can stay open. I mean, they close the bars, but they keep the restaurants open if they wanted to. They shut the restaurants down because there's so many people. And now it has hit in a way that people know somebody. And that's the other part of human nature, where when you realize it's not just what's being told to you, but you're experiencing it because somebody you now know has that happen to them. Now all of a sudden it's like, yeah. And that person was dang healthy in my mind. It was, I mean, I empathize, or they're a peer of mine or something like that. And now they're like, I could get it and it could happen that same way for me. The guy literally got sick on Thursday, died on Friday. And he saw hundreds of people. He's a musician, a very popular musician. At a bar, and then there was a band that had 5 pieces in it. 3 of them got sick, 1 of them died, 2 of them are in ICU right now. And all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I was there!" And now all of a sudden, they're hitting the restaurant. The restaurant said, "Well, we're going to close down for a couple of days and clean up." Now all of a sudden, people are going over. Well, how are you going to reopen? Is it the same crew that was there when it was sick? Don't they have to be 14 days quarantine? They're asking those questions, And so there is a certain reality of HIT that they can see it all on paper, but until they see the mushroom cloud, then it's not real.
Yeah. Agreed.
Absolutely.
It's a shame it has to get that far, but with all this uncertainty of lack of authority as to what really is and isn't happening, how it is and really isn't happening, and the politicization.
I don't get the doubters, like the ones who don't think this is real. Like
the one that think the Earth is flat and that.
well, okay, I don't get those. I don't get that either.
Some of it has to be perspective, though, because I used to live in the Dallas area, right? And I would be very uncomfortable walking into a Walmart in the Dallas-Fort Worth area without a face mask.
I
Okay,
think Earth go Walmart in the old days.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm uncomfortable walking into a Walmart
Or wherever, right?
at any time.
Yeah, spandex was never meant to be used that way. I'm just saying.
You can see it on the cameras up close.
And there's very few cases around here. So yeah, around here, do I go to Walmart without a face mask? Yes, I do, because there's like 6 cases, and so it's a different perspective.
Wait,
So
hang on,
the
sorry.
outbreak is being caused by Dean. I just want that on the record. For
I actually I made this from my bathing suit.
For not hitting the beaches.
Okay, I can't get that image out of my head. Oh.
Can't get rid of it. It won't go. It won't go.
No, we're in a period again where emotions are driving decisions well before logic. That was definitely the case pre-COVID, but emotions have grown much more rampant, and they're supported, from the politics and those that support different politics. They're perpetuating these stories and these feelings of fear, or that things don't really happen, don't really exist. It's crazy to say, look at how many precautions we were taking a few months ago when the numbers were nowhere near where they are now. They're in a worse position when we're taking less precaution. That is, logic right there is just, it doesn't come together. So we're not in a realm of logic. We're not in a realm of doing what makes sense based on data. Now it's control the minds, control the masses.
Mm-hmm. There was an interesting statistic that came up locally here. We've had more positive cases and more deaths in the past 7 days than the entire 3 months combined at the beginning of it.
Whoa.
There was an article that was in the news. I think it was the news today, or was it yesterday, where it mapped the whole of Europe against the USA in terms of cases, and you could just see the point that you eased and relaxed the measures, it starts to go up. Now, where Europe, albeit Europe changed it at different times, but where it was in a reasonably short period where they relaxed, you could see they relaxed later on in the cycle. So the bell curve for Europe goes like that, and it's dropped. It's still high, but it's not on a rampant scale going upwards. The only exception I would say to that is probably the UK, where we, obviously where Ben and I right now, because we're literally coming out of our, we're about to ease tomorrow. And we were talking before about, how you're going to feel and what you're going to do. And I was dead set against, I'm not going to go out. I've got a wife and 2 kids. My youngest daughter has health issues. I'm dead set against going out. Having done a little bit of research, realizing it's like, well, actually, I can't really make a decision. But finding out that in the local area, there's not too many cases, I'm actually going to venture out tomorrow. The appeal of going to a bar and beer just won the day for me. I would like to say it was an informed and educated decision, but it's probably a little bit emotional as well. But I am still going to be very much on guard. I suppose it's a bit what Ed was saying. It's that first time that you go out, and I imagine by Thursday, having been out five nights on the trot, I'll probably be fine. But we'll see. My liver might not be.
And it's interesting. I'm really curious because obviously the study here that we're looking at with Melissa has shown really improvement in people's willingness to go out. And I think, kind of what I was talking about in our AHO webinar yesterday, people can only, thank you, Kat, people can only deal with restrictions being imposed on them for so long before they start making illogical decisions that go against safety. However, I'm really curious to see the change from volume 6 to, I hope there will be a volume 7. I assume you guys are going to continue going, because now all of a sudden things are shutting down again.
Right.
So we have major restrictions here in Arizona going into place, in California. And I know we talked before about New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut requiring travelers to quarantine. I haven't really seen it in the news, but I know anecdotally from friends, and validated this on the CDC website, that that's spreading to other states as well. For example, Pennsylvania has implemented the same thing now. So I'm wondering, with this kind of resurgence, because also in the hoteliers that I've been talking with in my research project, they're saying, oh, you know what, as soon as the closures were announced in our state, we dropped 20% of our occupancy for the next 2 weeks. So I think that we are kind of, unfortunately, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think we're in for another wave of difficulty when it comes to leisure travel that maybe kind of happened right after the results of this survey.
So that's what I said. I think it was just before you joined, Lily. So we sent out the survey, we got the results, I posted the results, and I feel like probably within a day of posting these results, everything changed.
Don't you love when that happens?
Yeah, our data for our clients, just revenue, like we were up over 200% in revenue year over year for a good couple of weeks, and all of a sudden it just tanked, and it's still, we're now below booking where we were last year, after being so far above for a good couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it lends itself from a marketing strategy point of view. And this is something, Ben, you put in there, you know, what the new normal from the Mail says and so forth. I almost, and I've said this in previous presentations, I want to get off of what is the normal, what is the next way, because we're actually asking for a pause. By asking for a normal, we're saying that it stays a certain way for a length of time, so that is considered normal at that point. Every day is normal, because that is the normal for that day. The next day, as you point out, Melissa, it went from, you know, high water to low water, just simply because of the change that happened. But you have to plan, you have to have all these contingencies laid out, that this, you know, we were talking about reopening, pre-opening, emergence, all these terms that don't make sense right now, because nobody's emerging, nobody's coming out of what we're dealing with right now. We're back in the hole again. And having strategies that are planned for, that relate to this. Like we lived through, I did with some of our clients, a great occupancy, because we were looking for the type of business that was traveling during this process. And we never really ventured too far from it. So when we went back in the hole again, it was just resetting back to what we were already focused on prior. We were searching for new types of business as the business changed. That's normal. But then when that business didn't come through because of retreating back to closing things down again, we went and reset back to the things we knew we could get business from. A lot of hotels are sitting there by their front door with the light on, waiting for the business to pull in. And they're not really targeting who they can get to come into the hotel, as it is much what they would, you know, waiting for people to come to the hotel. It's whether you're hunting or whether you're just waiting. I think it's kind of where we're seeing some differences in what hotels are succeeding and what hotels are floundering. Anyway, Melissa, with that, you know, since there was a fart in church for me, yeah. What other numbers do we have?
What are the numbers? Well, since Lily already brought it up, we did ask again. I think this is either the second or third time we asked the top 3 reasons that would prevent people from staying in a hotel. And on our last round, we had so many people write in that there was nothing preventing them that we added that as a choice this time. And so we, as of this data, we had over 30% of people saying that nothing is preventing them from traveling at this very moment. And even though fear of guest interactions and fear of common areas that have been the top 2 choices, that remain constant, but those dropped substantially. Fear of guest interactions went from 50% down to 41%, and then fear of common areas decreased from 43% down to just over 30%. So there was some drastic change in 3 weeks on this question. But again, this is already a few weeks old. So I don't know if I ask this question today, if these numbers are going to go back up.
Yeah.
Are you going to increase these to a daily survey, Melissa, where you publish?
Yeah, I'm just not going to sleep.
Follow along with Lauren, the norm of today.
Yeah, the normal
It will be
today. Yeah.
especially interesting to see what these look like post 4th of July holiday weekend. Because, as we came out of May, came out of what should have been the school year, wasn't, whatever, there's a lot of pent up aggressive people that are just ready to get out. I've got to get the hell out of here. Memorial Day weekend, people left. They went to Myrtle Beach or whatever have you. And even into the early summer here, they started going out. 4th of July weekend, people want to go out. After we get over that initial high, does it take a nosedive? And does that then change things, especially as, let's assume that we're going back to school, knock on wood. What does that look like then when the school year starts again? Does that all nosedive? Because ultimately people need a reason to travel. You're traveling for business, you're traveling for leisure, whatever it may be, but there has to be a reason I'm going someplace. I'm not just going there because I like to look at the Holiday Inn, right? There's a reason I'm going there. And as soon as that, right now, that reason is I got to get the hell out of the house. As soon as that subsides, what replaces it?
I think we keep shooting ourselves in the foot with these recurring holidays and the inconsistency of how we respond to them. Again, the politicization of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Down here, the confusion. For instance, the east coast of Florida is shut down. The restaurants are shut down, but the beaches are closed. So now over here, the wisdom of counties versus cities. The counties are leaving the beaches open for their access, but the cities are shutting theirs down. Parking for the city is closed to only residents, but parking for the county's parking is available to whoever wants to park there and pay for it. So there's going to be this huge flood of people that are coming from the East Coast that have nothing to do, nowhere to go. They're going to go over to these beaches like they did the last time that this happened. And they're going to flood our beaches, no social distancing. They're going to crowd. When they get kicked off the beach, because the beaches are, and picture how this is going to work. The beaches are open from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., then they're closed. Then they reopen at 5 p.m. until dusk. So tell me how much fun that's going to be getting people herded off. And where are they going to go? They're going to pile up into the pools by the hotels. Because they already even said that when they interview people on the beach, well, when the beach closed, we're just going to go to the pool and have fun. That is not going to be social distancing. The hotels are sold out on the beaches already because everybody from the East Coast has already come over and booked. There's no centralized fireworks, but everybody gets to shoot fireworks off. The boats that are coming over are so profound that the boat ramps, there's no parking for boats and trailers. They stretch up to 6 miles away from the boat dock where they park. There's places that people will come over and literally park up into the front yard of somebody and leave the car. And even though they get a $200 parking ticket, they don't get towed because the tow people can't. If they max out their tow storage, they have no place to bring the towed car, so they can't tow cars after a certain point. So all they're getting is a $200 fine to them, which is like a parking ticket. So they don't care. And they're pulling up in people's front yards in the grass and just leaving the car. And the person's yelling and screaming at them, and they don't care because they want to get to the beach. They want to go do something. And it's this inconsistency of stuff that we're facing. And then all of a sudden we get this surge like we just saw from the Memorial Day weekend. We're literally in the hole because of that. We're going to be in the hole again because of July. It's going to come back around again.
There's like a few other factors too to keep in mind. We're talking about from the industry side of things, flipping it to the actual working side of things. Like my honey, he works in the restaurant business, and his business, like many others, really struggled with getting staff back once that initial hit of COVID had furloughs and layoffs. So now he's faced with this, like what do they call it, like a fire drill of getting people in the door, and those people need money, they need work, they're lying about their symptoms, or people are bringing them in even if they have some type of symptoms, because you're still required to have full capacity here in Georgia and function normal. So how do you meet that demand? And people are walking in groups of 20 and 35 and looking for service. So there's that aspect. And then July 31st, that additional unemployment benefit is due to expire. So if that isn't extended, then the market is going to get flooded once again with all of these people that may have been vacationing, that may have been inside, but the opportunities for it to spread from inside where all of these tourists and people are traveling to is going to increase too.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying about the unemployment, because first of all, I have a feeling something's going to get extended, even if it doesn't look quite the same. I would be pretty surprised if the government doesn't pass another bill, probably 24 hours before the other one expires as it goes. But as I've been talking with hoteliers as well, that is one of the top 3 pain points in almost every market, that people are not returning to work because they're making more money on unemployment. So if they do extend it in the same way, it kind of hurts us on the other side, because there's literally hotels that could fill more rooms, but they're not doing it because they can't get enough hands on deck to turn those rooms over properly. So if anybody has any major solutions to that problem, please hit me up, because I have a lot of people who would like to know about that.
No, but I can give you a couple of solutions to if somebody parks the damn car on your lawn. That for me is a perfect time for a little bit of gardening. Maybe turn the soil over 3 or 4 times. Spread some muck around if you've got it. Really fertilize the soil. That would not fly in the UK.
I'm not saying I've ever done this, Ben, but also if you take mini marshmallows in the summer heat and just line them up on the top of the windshield wipers.
Ooh, I like that.
Lily.
Damn.
Right?
Wow.
Do not mess.
Lily.
That's a useful tip for the
Do not mess with the
Don't
muck.
park it. Yeah, don't park in her yard. Good
I
job.
had a fun question for you guys. Has anybody, I know somebody had mentioned, I think it might have been Ed, the mask fails. Have you seen anybody where like, whoa, I wish I could be as good as you? Like I saw this lady running uphill with her mask on. I was like, no, I'm just going to sit down. It was just too much to watch. But
I have turned into a mask fashionista, though. I have masks for all occasions. I have my Darth Vader mask, as I affectionately call it, because it has double breathers and a strap that goes around behind my back, so I look like, I can sound like Luke, I am your father. And then I have a fabric mask, which is for social engagements outside, where I'm going to be outside, and I just need a mask for something to look good. And then I have my other mask, which is a thick cotton one with a single breather that we have the physical therapist come in, that has a carbon filter and stuff, so it's a little bit more healthier. So I have masks for all occasions now. I'm going to go over and start getting some logo masks. Y'all might be receiving some in the mail. Just saying.
They'll all be pre-tested.
Is it a mask that says? Is it a mask that says like hospitality.marketing, or is it a mask that's just your face here?
Oh, with the mouth open.
If I had like the bottom half, and we all turned up with just the bottom half of Lauren.
I'm writing that down. I am writing that down. Hold on. I'm going to make that.
And Lauren, the term you were trying to come up with was mascanista.
Oh, okay. That works out better for me. I like my
that's
word, but
already
I'll take yours.
I think that's taken by TJ Maxx.
No, that's Maxinista. It would be Mascanista.
I was thinking about what Lily said regarding the difficulty of getting employees back, and I've given this a lot of thought, and I only wish that the government would allow you to say bring somebody back to work for, let's say, 2 days a week, and that way they can get their full pay for those 2 days. Hopefully that would make it more than unemployment, and still get it for the rest of the week. But I feel like even just to come in for 1 day, it messes up their entire unemployment, including the $600 extra. I just don't think that it's organized properly, and they did it to be quick, but it's been 5 months now, so they should have rethought it by now.
So I thought that, sorry, Lily, I thought if you were unfurloughed and you said no, that stopped your unemployment in any case, because
that's supposed to be the case, but I don't think the businesses are reporting.
Right. That's what the business has to then go in and do something to report that they're not eligible for unemployment. And because, the relationship factor, I think, prevents that in a lot of cases. Like they may say, but we need them to come back later, even if they won't come back right now. So people are being really lax about that.
Well, and to be fair, it's not clear. It's not clear how you would actually report someone. Because even on the Paycheck Protection Program, you can report that you attempted to bring an employee back. It's written that you can do that, and yet there's no way to do it.
Right.
And who really wants to hurt their employees?
Right.
And to be honest, it's not. I mean, if you've got a housekeeper who normally their take-home pay is, let's say, I don't know, $450 a week, and now they're making $750 on unemployment, I wouldn't go back either. That would be the wrong decision for me and my family when you have an opportunity to sock away a little extra money because we don't know how long this is going to go. So I think that employers, although they're suffering from employees not coming back, they are also, it's almost a humanitarian thing.
Well, and it's
really
not
good.
just like your standard employees, it's your seasonal, your interns, your like there are entire areas in like state parks that are 100% staffed by volunteers that travel in and live for the season. They can't do that this year. So that there's all sorts of dynamic challenges right now for different destinations on staffing.
Yeah, I know that from clients that I have restaurants in the San Antonio area, and San Antonio is one of ground zeros as well. They just mandated all restaurants have to be closed for nobody in the interior. One of the solutions was that he didn't bring them back, but brought them back as ad hocs to that do deliveries, pickups, things like that, and work that way, so that they didn't go back onto payroll, so they're able to stay unemployed, but they were able to, as long as they didn't go up to a certain threshold of income, they were able to do some sidebar work. So. At least giving some money back to what you literally said, maybe a couple of days, or Adele, I'm sorry, a couple of days worth of work in essence, without necessarily violating their unemployment status.
Yeah, because when the hotel is not performing at optimal levels anyway, maybe they only need their sales and marketing coordinator to come in one day.
Right.
And it helps everyone.
So as the obvious vice presidential pick for Ed's presidential ticket, I've put a lot of thought into what our policy is going to look like around this.
Your platform? Your platform?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, I think that it would make a lot of sense because obviously there is a greater need for greater unemployment right now. So that it's a good thought, but capping that at 75% of their regular earnings, I think provides incentive for them to come back to work. And, maybe even then making it up to $1,000 a week, because there's plenty of people who are making $75,000 or more and have expenses around that the unemployment is barely going to touch what they need, but still capping it at that 75% or even 60% mark.
Well, and most unemployment offices have a reporting functionality that they normally use where you prove you've looked for a job.
Right.
You could easily implement that you need a letter from your employer that you're either permanently laid off or you're on furlough and you have not been asked back yet. And that would allow you to have an exception for a greater benefit.
Right, exactly. So I think that it's really, and actually in Arizona, they've waived entirely the section of "Are you looking for work?" which I don't necessarily agree with, because there are other jobs that you can get. So as long as if you're getting a job that's significantly less, you can still make up the difference in unemployment. I think it's good to have people out there actively looking for work. It's good for mental health. It's good for a variety of reasons, the economy in general. If they can't find something, then fine, that's fair, but people should be actively looking for work. And I think that's one of the big loopholes in the current unemployment issue.
I do think, though, with some of the unemployment, the offices that are handling that, they've been hugely overwhelmed. I've heard stories of people who were furloughed weeks ago, have only just recently started getting unemployment, and it's not going to be backdated. So they effectively were furloughed by the company and went without salary, without unemployment, without any money coming in for a month and a half.
Right.
Florida's the poster child for that. Florida has been the poster child. They literally, there's been people who've been unemployed for 90 plus days. And then when they finally got to, and some still haven't, got unemployment, which is the lowest in the country, one of the lowest in the country. Ed can tell you that. They were also denied.
What are you saying? I've never collected unemployment.
No, but you were the one that pointed out the fact
I've never been employed.
That's true. Oh, you're unemployable. Let's put it that way.
I am unemployable.
You're unemployable. But the idea that they couldn't even get back pay for the times that they were out.
No, they're doing back pay.
No, they're still having problems with it. There's people getting denied on a regular basis.
They're supposed to be doing back pay, which means eventually you will get back paid. But the Florida unemployment system was designed to be incredibly difficult, near impossible, to discourage people from using it. And it
Well,
bits
they
them in the
succeeded.
butt in this specific instance.
I think they went through a system change as well midway
Yeah.
through the crisis, and
So-
we've all kind of worked in IT or worked with computer systems. You know, the worst possible time that you can make a change is when you've got a rush of people coming to your website, and it just
Yeah, but to be
crazy.
fair, I mean, it was something like $80 million to develop a non-working architecture. I think I want to go into government contracting.
I
Hey,
could do
so-
it for half that.
I could do it for half that and make
it.
it work 5% better.
That's right. So I want to throw something towards Melissa that this is a byproduct of what's going on right now. That might be possible to be brought into the dialogue of future tense surveys. With the U.S. being shut out on international travel because we deserve it, and Russia and China as well, and so forth and so on, the scope of international travel is going to change even for the short term. It's like a race. We're not in that race right now. Everybody, as they emerge from their ability to travel, I have family in Holland, and they normally come to the U.S. because they have property over here that they stay at. Well, now that plan is now changed to what am I going to do in Spain, what am I going to do in Italy, what am I going to do in France, whatever, and maybe even travel other countries that are safe to travel to. That dynamic is going to change for at least the rest of this year. Possibly as an impact of future tense because of the discoverability of people saying, hey, I don't have to go to the U.S. next year. I kind of like going to Turkey because it was an all-inclusive resort or whatever. And I didn't think about it before because I was forced to do it this past year. So is there a way to somehow engage the survey participants as to future tense international travel? I know you have a lot of domestic survey people and not so much international audience, but I know you have some, I imagine. As to the perceptions on their international travel preferences going forward. Is safety of the traveling destination now a part of the consideration process? Is there an exclusion? Do they feel that they're going to be less likely to travel internally? Whatever, I don't know. I don't know how to phrase out the variations to the questions, but it is going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact on U.S. people being able to travel, which for the first time we're actually limited. Usually we're the ones that go rocking around going, the ugly American tourist. We don't have that anymore.
I mean, the current climate of the U.S. has me in a weird position because I have a rule that I don't go to places that are in like volatile, almost wartime type situations, and the U.S. is kind of there.
You live there.
Right. So I'm trying to and they won't let us go anywhere. So
We've turned into the meth house. We've turned into the meth
I'm
house.
already starting to look for how to apply for refugee
Right.
status.
I was just gonna say
I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to New Zealand really bad.
Yeah.
An interest in this is going to be one of 3 and 6's things, right? Refugee status for Americans who want to come to the UK.
We could definitely branch out into that.
Yeah.
That experience, the
Could be
legal
very
market.
lucrative.
But I
Jen,
wouldn't advise the UK at the minute.
Yeah.
We've just locked down. What we're playing now is biological whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. Yeah.
So our government, our shaggy-haired PM was like, "Oh, there's a terrible situation in Leicester. So what we're gonna do is lock down Leicester." And everyone sort of went, "Well, Leicester? Like Leicester, or Leicester, the outlying area? Or just Leicester? Okie dokie." So
Don't
you've
ask
got
questions.
Don't
Get
ask
out of here,
questions.
kid. You're bothering.
just lock it down. So you had these articles on the news where there were people on the street on a row of terraced houses, and one guy was like, "I'm locked down." And his neighbour was like, "I ain't," because Boris said the line stops there. So you guys can say that, you dirty infected biofilm carriers, whereas I'm off to the pub. And what they're doing now is they're stopping people and getting them to produce driving licenses to prove they're either from or not from Leicester. Because one guy, this is brilliant, this is the British way of thinking. One guy hired a coach to take his entire street to the next city down to get plastered tomorrow, to have a drink tomorrow, when the pub's open. And the cops like, "You can't do that." And the government like, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, why can't I do that? Leicester's locked down. I'm leaving Leicester." No, that's not the point of a lockdown, you buffoon. So, to summarise, Lily,
the U.S. will be hold my beer. We have kids that are having parties to contract COVID.
COVID-19 parties.
Please do not refer to Alabama as the U.S. I think everyone in the world
Suck it up, Senator.
can
Those are your
agree
people. Those are your
that
people.
Alabama should not be what we use as an example of the
But there's a
U.S.
song about
All I'm
it.
saying
Less
is-
weather, come on.
I'm telling you, though, now that this has gotten out there, it will become a national trend. And if you don't believe me, just Google Tide Pods and
Yeah,
see
right.
what comes up.
I still wish.
How about Clorox injecting while we're at
Yes,
it?
yes.
There's enough dumb people around here. But I think, Ben, to your point, it's nice to know that good old Boris is taking cues from the U.S. in how to do a lockdown effectively, because essentially that's the same thing that's happened here is, hey, everybody can make their own rules based on their own locality. And I've been saying from the beginning, if we had shut down as a country with the same rules everywhere, strict quarantine rules in the entire U.S.
You would have the government overthrown.
True.
Yeah.
But for 30 days, if we had been able to accomplish that, that would have eradicated most of this.
Agreed. The problem is, and the UK generally has the same problem, is governments that allow freedom
Right.
have this deep-rooted issue where they can't actually force the public to do something without fear of the public immediately rising up and pushing back. It's and like the whole idea of pre-announcing a lockdown, I mean, that's asinine. Like, you literally should roll military in and lock down. Sorry, you're here. We're locking it down because the nature of this thing is if you're here, you're likely to have it, no one in or out, right? That's how it should work. But in free nations, you can't do that. Because what will happen is not only the people who were locked down will riot, the people who are in fear of the government doing the same to them will also do that. And I'm not just talking about the crazies. I'm talking this would trigger, middle of the ground people to even be greatly concerned that the government is overreaching what it's allowed to do. And that's actually the systemic problem of a free government. So the only governments that can effectively handle this type of situation are governments where the people are not free.
Well, I'll lean a little bit on Lily's side to this too. But lack of central authority on this conversation. And I won't say common sense because it's not common and nobody has much of it anyway, is the idea that even statistically pointed out that if we all just wore masks and not politicize it, if we just wore masks from a financial point of view, we're $5 trillion ahead because the economy would be able to function, to your point, Ed, in a sufficient way. It would be volunteered that we would realize as a community mutual safety.
Yep.
And if we simply complied with the aspect of making sure all of us are a participant in this, in a free will society, then we should do this. What has happened is the lack of clarity of leadership, the lack of consistency as to the decision process, the diversification of response, and all the things you pointed out clearly has created this ambiguity as to whether I'm on one side of a view versus another side of view, simply by doing precautionary things that scientifically have pointed out are beneficial. How beneficial? Sure, we can talk about that all day.
Well,
but
and the cat
beneficial.
out of the bag with the mask thing is the problem that they could not say. They had to, and if you look, the government really in the early days of this were like, nah, masks don't do anything. They were actually super downplaying masks because there just weren't enough and they needed them.
Right.
That wasn't ever necessary because people knew how to make a mask. You know what? I have sitting next to me right here, this scarf. Sure. That would have been better than nothing. Everybody has a sock or a pair of underpants or a scarf in their house
or
that they could
any
have
other
made
piece of fabric that isn't gross.
I was going to say, you picked the worst things. I don't want to.
I hate it because I've seen
They have
YouTube
cat litter
videos
box
of how to
liners.
turn a sock into a mask.
And now Michael's and Joanne's fabrics are like, yes, please keep going.
Make your own mask.
Actually,
But
no.
imagine what it would be if Governor Cuomo was president and just talked to people with facts and common sense, as you said, that is so uncommon, and just said, yeah, you may be free to do what you want to do, but isn't this what you want? And that's why, we got a lot of compliance in New York.
Mhm.
I'm going to share what is going on in my own neighborhood. So I live in an HOA community. We have a pool that is not opening this summer. And the community is at war with each other because in order for our pool to open under the letter of the law of the governor's executive orders, we would have to pay multiple staff members to be at the pool to clean up after every single person touched a door handle and all of the chairs and tables and everything else. And there's no way we can afford to do that. And the HOA board and can be sued liably because if somebody gets COVID, somebody's going to sue. The amount of controversy over this pool is, in my mind, insane. People are so angry about their right to this pool. And also, if the pool's not open, we deserve money back on our fees for the year, even though, the pool still has to be maintained. People are out of their minds.
Which is even funnier because it's your pool. Like, if you don't pay, the pool doesn't get taken care of. You'll end up having to pay to get it back up and running. And the idea of suing your HOA, you're suing yourself. You are suing yourself.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is like
there's no common sense.
Right.
And science doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if it's a pool or the masks or whatever. Everybody is just on edge right now. It's been too long. And, I think to the point of would the 30 days work, would the 30 days not work, all of that. Either way, like the idea of shutting down society for 30 days, we basically did, but we did it for a different 30 days over here than over here than over here. And that's why it's July now and we're still seeing shutdowns of the economy. I think we would have actually had less economic impact if everybody had banded together. But to Ed's point, it doesn't matter what we enforce unless we really go into military law, because unfortunately we've bred a culture where everybody's so focused on their rights, which most of the ones they're bringing up are not in the Constitution anywhere that I'm aware of. But people feel so entitled in today's society, and we don't have enough care for others. Because that's what would actually solve this is if, people think that, I'm not sick, so I shouldn't wear a mask, but I don't really know if I'm asymptomatic, or even more so, this mask isn't going to stop me from getting coronavirus.
So I'm not going to wear it.
I'm not going to wear it, which is
by the way, my favorite meme I've seen online explaining masks is, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's basically using pants in place of a mask. So if someone's not wearing pants and they pee on you. If you're not wearing pants, it's directly on you. If you're wearing pants, only some of it gets on you. If the person who's peeing is wearing pants, the pee stays on them. It's my favorite.
That's essentially what it is, and we have to put it into terms like this because people just aren't absorbing it. Yeah.
Well, there's also it was mentioned on there about a lockdown for 30 days. I think there's a misconception about what a lockdown actually is here, because the UK has been on lockdown for a lot longer than 30 days. What we're on now, Ben? Is it like 9 weeks?
It's actually day 102.
There we go. But the world or the UK still has to function. Right. So there isn't a true lockdown. It isn't that everybody can just go indoors, stay indoors for 30 days. Because how do you get food? How do you get medicines? How do you get all of that? So there is still huge numbers of people going out there in the community. So the idea of what a lockdown isn't everybody being in prison for 30 days. It's just not possible. But to your point, Lily, if you've done it all at once, then that's how the UK is kind of reaping the rewards of having done this. Is that whilst our cases we were too slow to react and our cases shot up exponentially, we've now managed to get them under control because as a nation, we collectively had that power because, well, we're a lot smaller than the US. It was obviously
Well, and your central government has the power to do that. Our federal government does not have the authority to govern how the states handle commerce and things like that. So the problem with the United States is it would be impossible to federally lock down because it just can't happen. The states it could actually trigger where states could secede from the union.
We still have got Lauren, we still have got a similar thing because Scotland and Wales are not following and don't have to follow what England does, and they are attached to us. It is almost mini states, isn't it?
Right.
But we are fortunate that Scotland and Wales are actually being even more cautious than England is. I think they're probably doing it more out of spite because they don't like the English. But
oh, mate, definitely. So, every time Boris is about to make an announcement, Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister for Scotland, gets on TV an hour before and says the same thing. It's so petty, but it's brilliant. I mean, Scotland are keeping the 2 meters; they're not going down to 1. And as from I think it's the 10th, face masks will be law inside shops.
Is that in Scotland?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
I guess no, but Ed, I want to point something out. I agree with you that the federal government couldn't mandate a lockdown, but as we have seen from the lack of leadership or the cohesiveness of leadership, a central recommendation with an authoritative perspective, be the president, be the federal government, working and coordinating with the states, saying, "Guys, look here's the deal. Here, get all the governors together. This is what we're facing. This is what we're doing. We're looking to do this. This is why we're doing this. This is the information to validate what we're asking to do," and creating a consensus of decision rather than a decentralization.
I'm going to laugh too, Lord, right now. So the face of where our government is, right? So I've heard 2 things from Adele and then from Ed. You guys, I said, these are perfect for our show. The first one was, I only wish the government would ... fill in the blank. And then Ed just said, the problem with the U.S. government is ... fill in the blank. But we right now are also reducing funding on future cases, testing for cases, right? So if there's less testing, the numbers go down. Yeah, sure. They don't stop it existing.
Manipulation.
And then at the same time, we're also fighting for reducing businesses from being liable if staff or your customers get sick on premises. So yeah, go on and travel. It won't be the responsibility of the business where you get that COVID ad or wherever you get it. So you can't sue anybody, but you'll get it. And you're stuck.
Remember 5 months ago when this all came and started back in March and April, the message that was given to everyone was flatten the curve. We have to flatten the curve. And everybody showed these line graphs that had about a 60-day window to them. The curve either goes like this or it goes like this. All right. 60 days later, everybody's like, we flattened the curve. We did our job. Done. Right?
Now it's going like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's my
now
point.
it's a wave pool.
The line is that steep, it's effing vertical.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way,
There is a positive to this, though. I mean, we're all very like doom and gloom and government bashing, which is brilliant. There's nothing gives me greater pleasure than a Friday to be able to do that. But the one thing we're all looking at the USA is like, oh, that doesn't look good. Thank goodness we flattened the curve. We've got a bell curve and we're now flatlining. This is great. We're all really, really good, and not many people in the population have got coronavirus. The thing is, over in America, you guys are probably all going to have it, and then it's going to turn around. It's still going to be going around the rest of the world, but most of the USA has had coronavirus. So in effect, you're kind of in a better position. It's
Die.
It's the old school, like it's the old school chickenpox party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On a national level.
A national COVID party.
Yeah.
There you go.
Alabama. You know
Maybe
what?
Maybe Alabama was right. For once, they're first in something besides the
That is
alphabet.
it.
So you guys
That
have
is
got this.
not part of our presidential platform.
No, it's not.
You've got this so wrong. You've accidentally got herd immunity.
Yes.
Because
Well, that goes back to the cheers, the norm.
yeah.
Antarctica is still COVID-free. So if you're looking at
Now, is that because they haven't tested the? I mean, let's be honest. The Penguins could use some testing.
The lions at New York Zoo got it, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Polar bears. There you go.
Yeah, do you want to go to a wild polar bear with a syringe? This might hurt. This is going to hurt me. More than
Just
it's
take
going
the
to hurt you.
word for it.
Rob for you.
Yeah. Just
Open
stand
wide,
still.
say ah.
I don't know if you all remember the show Cheers and Norm's philosophy on drinking beer, that it kills the dead brain cells, the old brain cells. He says it's like the buffalo, the herd
Survival.
mentality. The herd can only go as fast as the slowest buffalo. So the slowest buffalo, by getting killed off, the herd can go faster. Well, beer does that for your brain. It kills off your brain cells that aren't working as well, so your brain actually gets faster. That's why you know everything when you get drunk, because it killed off all the dead brain cells.
Sounds like the
in a
theory of
way,
alcoholic.
It sounds in a way what you're saying, Tris, is that we're kind of doing the same thing as a country. We're just killing off the slow brain cells.
Oh god.
We're draining the wrong swamp. That is what is happening.
Yeah. Basically,
So,
yes.
so all of this celebration of all the wonderful things that are America before its birthday, special edition of hospitality marketing.
What are none about?
I'm going to be interested to see over the weekend how the bump in fireworks related injuries are going to skyrocket, because most of the big fireworks displays that areas do have been canceled. And so all the fireworks stores in this area
sold
have
out.
completely sold out, because people are going to DIY their fireworks. So I can't wait to see how many fingers get lost this weekend versus normal. By the way, when handling fireworks, open hands save fingers. How many houses burn down?
Commercial from Ed St. Orange.
Yeah. Exactly. I can actually remove my thumb.
Let's put it this way. Stumpy's going to be a new nickname for a lot of people after this weekend.
Well, I can tell you one thing that's happening in my neighborhood, which is that leading up to all the fireworks being canceled, and this has been going on now for about 2 weeks. Every single night, there have been short bursts of fireworks in our neighborhood.
Yep.
And one thing that it will cause, although I don't intend to lose any fingers because I'm not a big fan of setting off my own fireworks regardless, but I may need to get a therapist for my poor dog, who is now scared of the outdoors as soon as it gets dark, because she's so terrified of fireworks.
Is this not a thing though, Lily? The 2 weeks as we lead up to Bonfire Night, Guy Fawkes, which is when we traditionally set off fireworks and not from the UK.
Celebrate, people try to blow up our government.
Yeah, that's what it. Yeah. That's the thing you want to celebrate. Let's be honest. We're back to
you guys should try it. It's really easy.
Yeah, it wasn't even successful, but because he tried it, God loves to try it. So we have for 2 weeks before, kids, whatever, they're all setting off fireworks, they're getting hold of them, and you can just hear the bangs and going off. Is that not a thing before Ungrateful Colonial Day? I mean,
Lily lives in the desert, so fireworks are just ill-advised in general. Here in the tropical climate of Florida, that also is rich in Latin cultures, fireworks are almost year-round. We pretty much Christmas, New Year's, a couple of other holidays I'm aware of, or just random reasons to set off fireworks. The 2 weeks leading up to 4th of July, it seems like it's always fireworks.
See, I feel like I'm in a better place being in Florida than I was when I lived in Texas, because in addition to fireworks, we have the daily reminder not to continue to shoot your guns up in space, because bullets do come back down.
And does anybody appreciate
Does
the
me know.
fact that all the fireworks come from China?
I know.
You're going there. You're going there, Dean. Be careful.
Well, I have to just interject, because it seems to fit the moment. I'm just dropping a link in here for anybody who's interested, and this is a nice little video about how to follow the rules currently around coronavirus. If anybody wants a little holiday weekend humor, because it is definitely on the humor side.
So, and also with that in mind, and go again, I've been thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Don't get me wrong. From a marketing perspective, for what's currently going on, There are some things that are still tried and true that are still effective for communicating and getting whatever business is still traveling for what reasons they have to travel. In answer to some of the earlier questions, and this is sad to say but real, there is a need for funeral travel for those that could not go earlier. There's a need for convalescent visits that they couldn't do before. There is a need for to visit people that, from a family perspective, that have been isolated from their other family, and they're looking to just reconnect with them. These are still core travel purposes for people, and they're going to do it at a distance level that is comfortable for them. There's also the fact that we have been adding additional content beyond the protocol changes. Hey, there's the executive producer for today.
She's speaking more sense already than any of us.
Right, exactly. There's the, other than just giving videos of what has changed in the hotel for people to know what to expect, we've also been really doing good showing local information, communicating via social, via the content on the website, putting the content on the website on orphan pages on your website, if you have the capabilities of doing that, which is talking about the local destinations that are open, the local restaurants that are, as to what their service levels are, whether it's lunch, breakfast, dinner, delivery or pickup, what to expect to do those things. But we're stealing that data and putting it on our websites. And then we're referring to it on our social postings.
Reallocating.
Right. Well, reallocating assets for the self-improvement and the actualization process. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Marketing.
Yeah, marketing. So doing those things have really been beneficial, because as people do the exploratory, knowing what they do before they travel, it's helped them in their process, because then, of course, we're giving them still a trigger to purchase in that process, like the book. We're not offering special discounts or anything. We're just saying, here's a vehicle that once you feel satisfied with the information we provided, you're willing to go over and make that choice. And here's the button for it. And that's helped. It's that reality right now. It's not about long-term, how do we get somebody consortia or wholesaler. It's about who right now is willing to do what they need to do for what reasons they have to travel, and what is it we need to convey information-wise to them that makes them feel comfortable about that.
Unless you're a beach hotel.
And then you free open. Everybody
Then
wants to
it's
be
just
with you.
straight up. You're good. You're
Yeah,
back
we're
to
here.
normal. You're back to normal marketing.
Yeah, just show up. Yeah, we're all good. Yeah.
Until you get locked down again, and then you'll be back open again.
State of Florida beach hotels are not going to get locked down again.
Oh, gosh,
The
no.
governor has straight up said he will not shut down our economy. And I think South Carolina's governor said the same thing, right?
Same. He will
Yeah.
not take a stand on anything. So
So South Carolina, Florida, your
You
beach
will
hotel.
literally have
That's
to
off the
die
table.
before
good.
or wait.
Yeah.
You'll have a hotel
Hey.
open, but everybody's dead and no one's staying.
I was just gonna say, let the bodies hit the floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it
Actually,
has
you could
to
just
be.
run it
Laura,
on
do you not have a
endless-
theme
on
tune for
endless
every
loop.
episode? Because that could be the theme tune. When you're editing this, instead of like, oh, it's Laura Gray, welcome to show 257.
It's
You can have let the bodies hit
the
the
floor.
There you go.
I think we can make that work. I think we can make that work.
In
Please don't
celebration.
tempt Lauren.
Actually, I mean, with the exception of Adele, every other American on this show is in a ridiculously governed state. You've got South Carolina, Florida, Georgia. Dean, where are you?
Nebraska.
Oh, yeah, that's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say we've already mentioned we've got a Boris, so I think we're
Right.
involved in this somehow.
So, Adele, you're the only person who isn't in a ridiculously governed area.
I only wish you could all be
Oh, wait,
enjoying
but are you
Governor
in-
Cuomo as much as I am.
Are you in
And the
Manhattan now?
partnership that he has with the governor of New Jersey and the governor of Connecticut. Because when they close things, they all discuss it together and come to some sort of a consensus or agreement, a mutual, benefit, because everybody understands that if something is open over here, everybody's going to go there, because we roam freely between those three places.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Cuomo also is from the land of Rome, but he is connected with a place that had gone through the very first huge outbreak of COVID. I am sure he has contacts that are like, hey, if you don't do this, everybody's gonna be like, nobody's gonna vote for you. They can't vote for you when they're dead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know
That's
what?
another insight.
I can tell you that my thinking about everything changed when I was, just kind of reaching out to some different people that I know. And there's a wonderful photographer that we work with in Italy. And he said to me, Adele, I beg you, do not take this lightly. This is extremely serious. And
Yeah, they
I'll
got
tell you
they
that,
got
that,
rocked.
that one caution really impacted my thinking of everything moving forward. And made some life decisions on that.
Yeah, very true. Those that have been impacted by it do understand the importance of it. Those that haven't are brushing it off, and now we're seeing the repercussions of that with the age change. The youth that really blew it off are now getting impacted for the fact that they've been exposed to it, and it's not a simple cold. It's not a simple flu. Maybe for most, yes, that's great, but for others, there's still the impact that it goes pretty severe. Florida, unfortunately, has the reputation of having the two youngest pass from this. 11-year-old just passed a couple days ago. It's just you just got to wonder the senselessness of that, let alone the others. It's easy to say, people with preconditions can have issues, but healthy young people, no.
So to lighten it up and to further appreciate Governor Cuomo, he's also a badass because he has pierced nipples and does not hide it. Like straight up on national TV wearing sheer shirts with both of them showing. It's pretty amazing.
That is very proud.
You need to Google that. You need to Google that.
When you Google it, don't just type nipples into Google, for goodness sake.
I've just typed Andrew's nipples.
Oh my God.
Well,
I destroyed Holly Zoba's image of him when I finally showed her, because I was on an HSMAI chat with her, and she was going on how he's her imaginary boyfriend, and I'm like, I didn't know you were into guys who like had the piercing. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, you need to Google that.
wow.
Well,
there they are.
See?
yeah. To Adele's point about, and there's the other one. To Adele's point about Italy getting hit with this really early, I don't know whether I'm beginning to join the tinfoil hat brigade or not here, but I've been speaking with some people who believe that they've had it earlier than the lockdown. Like we're talking January earlier on. So an ex-colleague of mine, their in-laws are French, came over, stayed, and then a short while after, my friend got very sick, and it was like really, really bad flu, really bad flu symptoms. And very recently, the in-law has been tested to find out that they actually had COVID-19. And they were ill at the same sort of time. Everyone survived, everyone's happy, and everyone's the case. So now there's actually, have we been on lockdown and looking after stuff? Well, really, I actually had it back in January. And January was way before any of this.
Well, and to be fair, think about how impossible it is to truly trace how early it hit certain areas.
Right.
Because it was before it was even a known thing. And when you think about normal medical it's triage. It's not, let's find out, like, you have flu-like symptoms, you have the flu, right? You have pneumonia-like symptoms, you have pneumonia. And it's taking longer, it's a little bit worse, you just have a really bad case of it. I would not at all be shocked to hear, that, in certain parts of the world, like this went back to last September.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I actually was one of those people who I had it in January, just after the marketing conference in New York, because I spent about a week in New York, also visiting with a friend and whatnot. And essentially a really bad 3-week flu, lost my voice for 4 days, got tested for the flu twice, both times negative. But I just recently went to have the antibody test, and that came back negative. So when my doctor gave me the results, they came with the message that, we don't really know if this antibody test is accurate anyway. Right. So if you think you had COVID-19, you probably did, but we also think you probably could get it again, but we're not really sure. So just use caution.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's how you,
That was
and that,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, is how you don't get sued.
Welcome to the marvels of modern medicine.
I'm fairly certain that I got COVID-19 from Stuart Butler.
Just be glad that may be the only thing you got from Stuart.
I didn't want to go into the rest of the test results.
But
That
in
rash
9
will
months'
go away
time-
with proper cream. Don't worry about it.
At least Holly will have her way and people will stop squishing her every time they see her.
Right.
Yeah, she's not a hugger. She's not a hugger. Holly's not a hugger. And I'm a
I,
hugger.
I do hope that handshaking will go away permanently. That's one of my hopes for the
Handshaking.
future.
I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm glad we're not a culture that does the kissing, because the kissing always has been weird to me. Like, it's just strange.
Is that just with strangers or with your wife as well?
All.
Just all. Just full stop. Yeah.
One time, I made a sales trip to Mexico to promote some tourism to New York, and I would visit every day Aeromexico, and the sales representative from Aeromexico would then go with me and drive me to introduce me to all of the owners of travel agencies. And as I would wait for her, as every single person in the reservations department came in, they would go around the room and kiss every single
So gross.
reservationist in the room and then sit down. And the next one would come in and it would go around again and again and again, like 30 people, all kissing each other every single morning. It was the most amazing thing. I love the love.
It's
but
amazing.
I worry for them now.
Well, and I learned how to get someone to stop doing it to you is you just quickly turn your face so they kiss you on the lips. They'll never do it again.
I'll be honest, Ed, I thought you were going to say tongue then.
That may work for you.
Well, given the COVID society, all you need to do as they walk up to you is just go, and everyone gets it.
Well, I mean, I tried a similar thing with Lauren with his hugging. Is the first time he came up and bear hugged me, I was like, well, that's weird. So the second time he did it, I just nuzzled my face into his neck, thinking, oh, this is gonna creep him out.
I just gave him a tighter squeeze. Like
He just doubled the hug.
He's like, oh, that's so nice.
He's like, look at Ed. He's so
Ed.
Oh, no, I'm with Lauren on this one. Yeah, a good hug. Yeah,
A good hug.
especially after a beer.
It should crack a couple
yeah.
vertebrae. You should hear a pop.
You should hear a little pop go on. Yeah.
All I'm saying is it's good for mental health, and that is proven.
Yep.
Okay, to bring us some of this, we are by nature people that need to be around other people
Ben's
in whatever capacity.
see how he feels.
I just need to pick me up, Ed, that's all.
But
Ben, turn around and do the.
But you can also do it. You can do it in more ways than the hugging. What we lost in our industry was the efficiency of communication. We got ourselves lost into it. How fast can we turn the guest at the front desk? How fast can we abbreviate what we're doing with the guest to get them on their way or whatever? The lack of engagement less solicited by the guest we tried to turn away from. Yeah, we had the rules, the 5-10 rule and so forth, but it was really just to acknowledge. It really wasn't to engage. We now get to go back to a more core source where we may not be able to shake hands or do the traditional ways of communicating physically like that. We can't up our game communication wise. We can be a little bit more sensitive to time, spend a little extra time, answer questions a little longer, explain a little bit better, show a little bit more, ask questions a little bit more to see if we can help a little bit more. We can translate some of that into a little bit more open dialogue that even though we're behind a plexiglass or across from the table, we can still improve our ability to make them feel welcome and a part of being wherever they're at, and with a safe distance. I mean, we got to brush up on our skills. If anything, training now is more important than ever because these people that have been trained wrong, for lack of a better word, need to be trained right now. They need to be trained for these extra things. So that's a lead
I
into it.
wholeheartedly agree. It's a cop-out to say that, well, we're not, face-to-face interacting the way we used to, so we can't give the same emotional support and level of service and sparkle sunshine on the guest and make them feel great and welcome like a movie star. It's just a cop-out.
Yeah, because
We
you weren't
have
touching them
so many
while you were
tools to
doing
do it.
that. You weren't touching them. You weren't like getting up.
You
close,
know what?
you know.
No, we weren't touching them,
Right. So
we were,
nothing's changed in that sense.
but we were, yeah, but now, behind the plexiglass and the mask
By
and
the way,
everything, it's more challenging.
Yes.
If I worked at a front desk and was behind plexiglass, I would buy like clings of like different hats and mustaches. So as people walked up, I saw them that way, they saw me that way, and I could go, "Oh, hey, nice hat."
Yeah.
You know, I saw a great post on LinkedIn, a little video from a Hilton Garden Inn. I think it was a Stepstone property. And they had, their stickers through the lobby to show people where to stand. And then they got their Hilton Honors guests to do like this little dance routine with them with signs, and they were all in their like 6 feet apart places. I thought that was fantastic.
Like a TikTok type thing.
I don't know. I try not
Okay,
to spend
but
any time on
to
TikTok.
amplify what Adele said, and not to disagree with that because we never did hug just to make communication. What we used to do for personalization was focus, and focus required proximity. We got closer. We were more direct with the person, and that's been taken away from us. And I think to Adele's point, behind plexi, behind a mask, conveying the smile that we can't show, we have to do it in our eyes or in our communication. And changing our methodology that we can't stand 2 foot away or 3 foot away to show focus on the person and that we're dealing with them and that we're intent on them and showing them as a priority. We can't do that as much anymore. We're at a distance behind a wall with a face mask on. That has to get trained differently. People need to understand how to convey emotion beyond the way they used to do it in a way that makes the person feel that that is true and genuine and not fake and contrived. And that's a training.
Which is really difficult for people with crazy eyes.
Yeah, imagine Steve Buscemi trying to check you in.
I know. I mean, the poor guy.
It's just drop a smile on face on your mask. That's
Okay,
all it
so
takes.
let's look at the contrast. Look at Triss' eyes and look at Kat's eyes. Tell me who you're going to listen to more. Really? Just put them into the photo.
I'm really
You know what I'm
sorry.
saying?
I don't know why he's picking
Triss is
on
going to
me.
look like a robber. Like, he's got those little, he's going to be looking at you like, to give me your money. Where Kat's going to be like,
Well, especially
Give
with
me
the
your money.
beard busting through all parts of the.
Yeah.
mask.
This is my face mask.
right? Yours
This
got
is
more going on.
Melissa's like sitting here going, "Oh God, what did I get myself into?"
Why does Stuart keep making me come here?
I'm sorry that I failed at keeping us on topic this week. It was just my normal role. But unfortunately, I have to leave a little bit early today.
Yeah, me too.
Unacceptable.
Mine is jumping around here, asking me for
Oh,
brownies and stuff. I wanted to mention, as far as the messaging and finding a way to still be endearing and genuine in what you're doing. Also, keep in mind, before all this, there were different types of guests that you had to tailor your messaging to, and I want to particularly draw attention to folks with ADA. I mean, we had so many conversations on how to manage service pets, and if you have a deaf person or somebody that communicates with their mouth, now it's completely covered, or they have certain guards, but there has to be even more specialized communication for those folks, and that's actually one bucket of gaining revenue, because right now how you're communicating safety protocols specifically for ADA individuals will be a draw, because hotels right now are really ramping it up to show what they have, and some don't have a budget to ramp it up.
That's a really good point. Look, I mean, sorry, Lauren, just look at the flurry of lawsuits the last couple of years for breaches of ADA with websites. I mean, our previous agency, we had a service line which was helping you fight lawsuits by proving you were ADA compliant. Now, that was just around accessibility to a website. What kind of lawsuits are you going to get if it's a safety briefing? If you've got somebody who's deaf and you can't lip read because of the face covering mask. I mean, I've seen masks that are
the clear,
like plexi there, so you can lip read.
Well, and you can do a face shield too.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Or you can get something like Kipsu, where you can communicate via text. Worst case scenario, when I lost my voice for 4 days and I was in a hotel, that would have been really helpful to me, almost as like a deaf mute person for a temporary basis. Instead, I had to text my assistant to call in my room service orders to the hotel because I couldn't speak. So I think that it really makes sense to implement things like that.
Doesn't sound like it. It more sounds like you just enjoyed torturing your assistant.
No, she is great. She is great. But I was at the point where I couldn't even whisper. I could make no sound whatsoever. So being in a resort environment where I would have had to walk nearly a mile to get to the front desk to even write something to them, it was literally my only other method of communication was to have somebody else contact the hotel on my behalf.
So 2 points of Kat's thing. First off, how many hotels are mandated to have one Braille guide? So you have one. So you're always going to keep that clean if you don't have more than one. Second, a good suggestion is if you're going to do videos to explain anything, do it with the audio, obviously, for those who can't see, and then for subtitles for those who can't see but can't hear, so they can understand what's being conveyed in the videos as well. It's easy to do. The technology is out there for everything on that sense. So those are 2 aspects of including to what Kat's pointing out. There are special needs for that. There's also an exceptionally cool app that's in beta that if somebody's doing American Sign Language, the kind of the baseline American Sign Language, that if you hold a camera up and watch them, it'll literally translate the hand signals to words, which is
really cool.
Amazing. That's really cool.
That to me is a
Like a future
brilliant.
guest host.
Yeah, that's just a brilliant use of the technology. I think it's awesome because I can't learn another language to save my soul. My wife speaks 5 of them, so she's my translator when I travel. And then American Sign Language, I would love to be able to know how to read or even use it. I'm just language deficient. I can't really translate past drunk talk.
It's because you're American. It's because you're American.
American. I'm American.
You speak 3 languages. You're trilingual. 2, you're bilingual. 1, you're American.
No, I'm not that bright. I'm not a sharp American.
That's because in New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York, we speak 1 language. If we spoke 3 languages, we would all speak 3 languages out of necessity.
Yep.
And I only wish that Esperanto or whatever it was they were going to come up with was going to work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
we just
you
don't
haven't
think-
got the exclusivity on this as Americans, because the Brits are also terrible. It's one of the reasons why we live in Europe. We just can't communicate with them.
No, because let's be fair, you don't even speak English.
No, we speak English. You knew you were going to press that button there.
I exit the show.
Yeah, I know.
Hold on. Melissa's waving a hand as well. Melissa, do you want to?
Wait, before you leave, I must say this. Irregardless is now a word in the dictionary.
No, come on.
I
How do you feel about it?
I'm very angry. I'm very, very angry about this.
Oh, I'm happy as heck. I've been using that word wrongly for years.
That could be a whole show.
Your wife would be very ashamed.
To be fair, Lauren, you use many words wrong.
Okay, you're right about it. It's very true. Okay, so Kat, if people want to know more about you and what you do for AHOA and so forth and so on, where is it they can reach you?
You can reach me, and actually right now, it's hard for me to check too many emails, so catch me at AHOA. That's KATHIJA at AHOA.com. Even if you write to info@AHOA.com, ask for Kat. She'll send you the
That's a pile of emails.
I'm sending one now.
I was like, did you catch all that spelling? I don't think so.
And Lily, where is it they can find you, please?
Can find us at tcrmservices.com for excellence in all things day-to-day revenue management, and thinkupenterprises.com for our podcast, as well as all things revenue management, consulting, system audits, and technology RFPs.
Nice.
Outstanding.
Well, to the 2 of you, thank you for classing up the place.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure I did that so well this week.
No,
but
you really didn't.
No.
I was just talking about
all here, Lily. When you started talking about melting marshmallows on people's wings,
I am not
Lily, we're gonna have to pray for your dog with its PSTD.
Right.
PTSD, I'm sorry.
the PSTD is a different thing.
I know, right? Oh, my bad. I'm not going that way.
I knew what you meant. I'm so confused. Another happy time.
So what were you saying, Ed, about being classy?
Right.
I'm not the one who said it.
Everything was going great until the very last minute, I swear.
Oh, the fingers are being pointed
Right.
now, aren't they? It was,
Yeah. Kat, thank you. Lily, thank you for the
Have a
time.
great
Always-
have a great 4th of Julie.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay healthy. Say hi to the executive producer for us.
Oh yeah, we'll deal with that right now.
have a happy Saturday.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
So,
Well,
so Tristan, Ben, something that's been bothering me. Why is it 3-6?
Well, we need a beer in hand to actually describe that conversation, I think.
Yeah. Scholars maintain that the original meaning of the company has been lost to the sands of time. I will lie to you, Ed, and say that it's my best ever kill to death ratio on Call of Duty.
Ben's 3, I'm 6. I'm twice the Matt he is. That's all you need to know.
But together we're packing 9.
Together, you're slightly above average.
I think you'll find it we're nearly at 10.
And we lost Lily. We're not pulling up the yoke here. The plane's burning down in tragedy. Okay, so Melissa, save us, help us. So for anything else in comparison to when the survey was taken compared to current circumstances to now we face, do you feel that there's going to be any prognostication as to swing as to, do you think that people's opinions are going to change and they're just waiting for it to act on it because they've been closed down and they're still thinking the same way? Or do you think that it's going to make people think their mind as to, whoa, I'm glad I didn't do what I thought I was going to do because look what happened for those who did?
So here's one of the questions that we've asked, I think, on every survey is, how soon are you going to travel, or how soon are you willing to travel? Within 30 days, 0 to 3 months, blah, 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 blah. And those numbers within the 0 to 3 months have continued to grow in terms of likely, definitely, etc. And we saw that again on this survey, but we also saw the more than a year grow. So people that were in the 6 to 12 month category sort of migrated into the more than a year category. So I think we're starting to see what our brains are already knowing. Like, people are just more diverse now. The people who want to go are going to go now. And the people who are unsure are like, I'm waiting this out. I'm not jumping on a plane. I'm not going anywhere. I think that the people who are uncertain are more uncertain now. And the people who just don't give a crap are just going to travel.
Yeah. I know that, it's interesting for the first time in our nation's history, I guess to say, that we are being excluded from our options of travel internationally. Where, there's one thing to Ed's point, going to a dangerous country is always you get the State
we're the
Department's,
dangerous country.
Yeah. But now we're the dangerous country, and we can't go to Europe. We can't go to Canada. We can't go to Japan, South Korea, Australia, New
You
Zealand.
go to Mexico.
Everybody can go to Mexico. Tequila kills everything, don't you know? But it's different in that sense. And do you think there's any idea of asking? Do you ask anything about how they're going to travel? Drive versus fly versus maybe now incorporating RV or camping or. And I bring this up only because it came up in the news recently. A lot of corporate apartments are coming to market for long-term Airbnb-esque stays, where if you want to go somewhere and go and stay and feel safe that you can control your environment by cooking and so forth, a lot of these corporate apartments that have been out there for corporate travel that aren't being used, not to lose them, the companies are now renting them.
Yeah. You can't, that's not a cause and effect type thing. That's them repurposing their own business model to what will work. And this is something we need to be cautious of when we see changes in behavior. Is it the consumer that thought of it, or was it the business being creative? And really, I don't think you can get an answer to that, right? In one hand, yes, a corporate apartment has, attractive aspects to it, but the amount of education you would need to make that mass appeal is substantial, right? So they're just looking for pockets, just like you've done for your clients, Lauren. You're looking for the pockets of people that you can speak to, and you're dropping that message to that audience to attract them to you. Do I think that's long term? I mean, I don't think you're going to see corporate apartment companies switch to leisure travel, because usually corporate apartments are in areas that are not necessarily like strong leisure markets to begin with. And again, that's speaking to corporate markets. Like, you look at companies like Domio, who are setting up, basically apartment communities to be hotels. Those are in leisure markets. They're driven to leisure traveler. They're trying to give the best of both worlds of a vacation rental type stay with hotel type professionalism and services. I think you're going to see more of those, but not because of what's going on as far as COVID goes. It's the overbuilding of apartment communities.
Right.
Everywhere here, apartment communities are shooting up at breakneck speed. And there's going to be a need for a model like a Domio.
Right.
So, but I don't think that's a COVID related. I think that's just, enterprising business trying to find a way to make the best they can with the lemons that they were given.
Yeah.
And we do get some write-in. I can't remember what questions it was where it would suit this answer, but we do have a lot of people who write in, campgrounds, or I have an RV or something like that. But in my humble opinion, I don't know how much that's going to change. Like, I think if you're a camper, you're a camper. If you're not a camper, I'm not going out to stay with the bugs. I'm just not. It's not going to change COVID or not. I need it plumbing.
Could you be a glamper?
It's still bugs. There's still bugs. Not doing it.
Key element bugs.
Melissa, going back to the fuel survey, I always really like, and much credit goes to you guys for doing this. There's the word cloud in question 14, and I love to see the differences. And what I'm noticing here from previous surveys that we've done, there was that brief spike when lockdown was eased, or the restrictions were eased, the brief spike, and you were getting fun and different types of words. I'm not seeing a great deal this time. It's gone really back ultra safe as well.
I agree.
But not surprising given the rise in cases that are happening. But it's good because even the words seem to be changing a little bit now as well, because you've got that comfortable in there, which I don't recall seeing, or if it did, it didn't jump out to me last time. And work is dropping in there as well. People are now starting to think about, as we're getting towards the end of July, is the unemployment going to stop, or is it going to get extended? We don't know. So am I going to be going back to work? Is there going to be issues? So it's really that. I think that word cloud is really, really good in the way that it's almost like a cross section of what people are thinking there and then on the spot. And interesting to see that we've had a brief spike in fun, and now people are getting a little bit more serious again.
I agree. And again, like I said, after this survey was sent out, I just feel like, I think if we sent it out today, all of this would be different again. I could be wrong, because maybe these people taking the survey they're chronic survey takers and they're answering the same questions all the time. I don't know, but I feel like with the numbers rising, that something's going to be different on the next round.
Are you guys still enticing them to conduct the surveys by the Flip 2 campaign that you were running with I think Stuart mentioned it a couple of shows ago. At the end of the campaign, at the end of the survey, they'd won a free chance to enter another competition on the back of Flip 2. All you got to do is do the social stuff.
They don't get that until they actually fill out the survey.
Okay, but do you tell them about that?
I think it's still on the completion page. I think.
No, actually, you guys closed entries earlier this week, and you're getting ready to move into your wrap up mode.
Glad you know.
To close out the most successful campaign ever thrown on the Flip 2 platform.
So we need to bring that up as well when Tim and Stuart are back here, because wasn't there a competition going on between?
There was a little bit of.
Let's be honest. The competition ended about 4 days after that conversation, because Stuart just pulled out all the stops and just berated their audiences to get them into the campaigns.
Just fixed it. So in his favor.
What was really fun for them, and Stuart's been sharing some cool stats with me, is they've had over 20,000 people sign up as part of this campaign, as part of their interaction with the campaign, and over 80% of them are net new to their database, which is
incredible.
It's insane, and it was an organic. They didn't spend a dime on this campaign, which is amazing.
That sounds like a Melissa idea. It doesn't sound like a Stuart idea.
Yeah,
Marcus doesn't come from Stuart. I think it's more of a Melissa idea.
That is far out of the realm of my job. I just report on numbers.
So you said it was somebody else on the team, not Stuart. That's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, you can say. Yeah, we just know it's not Stuart. At the baseline of it, it's just not Stuart. I mean, nobody from New Guinea can actually do that.
He's from Hong Kong.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
I think he wants to become a New Zealand resident like everybody else.
I think everybody else wants to go to New Zealand. Any country that's run by a woman, I'm in.
I mean, Theresa May ran out as a couple.
Yeah, there's a good point.
I mean,
No.
probably just tap out.
No. Oh, okay. There we go.
But didn't the UK ruin New Zealand recently? Didn't they report no cases? And then two Brits went over there for a family funeral and just coughing and touching everything. They went from 0 cases to Britain. So on behalf of the British people, to the New Zealand audience or the Kiwis listening to these, we'd like to apologise on behalf of Her Majesty's government. like Alabama isn't part of the US, those two aren't part of the UK.
This was such a high quality show today, despite all of our attempts to make it educational. Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about at least one other question before we run out of time.
Let's hear it.
Oh, that's fine.
Because it's new to this round of the survey. So it is question number 12 if anybody is actually looking at the survey right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we asked how likely people are to use different types of amenities. Mostly different types of water amenities, but then we also asked about the gym and a gaming arcade, the business center, and the spa. And outdoor pool was by far the most likely thing to be used. And again, remember when we're asking this question, seasonality is going to have maybe a little bit of impact on these answers. So we had 44% said that they would definitely use an outdoor pool. That didn't surprise me. What did surprise me is the differential between the outdoor pool and the indoor pool. And I would love to hear somebody else's more scientific mind than mine about why there are only 26% that would say that they would definitely use an indoor pool. Now, you're sitting with the same group of people, with the same chlorine, with the same chairs, but indoor versus outdoor in people's mind makes a difference.
The sun, UV.
Yeah, UV was allegedly, because we can't trust anything that anybody says about coronavirus anymore, but allegedly UV kills coronavirus. So
but also, to be fair, indoor pools are gross, and you feel it as soon as you walk in the room, and it's humid and just reeks of
Seems like
chlorine.
mold and stuff. You just think there's mold somewhere.
Yeah, there's definitely mold in indoor pools.
Yeah.
But with respect to the
How many
respondents,
people
do you
said
think they've thought
gym?
about that?
What's that?
I think anybody.
Less than 6% definitely on the gym.
And about 4% of them are lying.
Yeah, because
Probably.
when my wife asked me, did I work out when I was traveling? Oh, yes, I did.
Definitely, 100%.
Lots of hugs.
But what I also thought was interesting is so we're at 44% for an outdoor pool said definitely. 31% said definitely for a lazy river.
Yeah.
So now you're touching
It's an
a
outdoor pool.
tube
Yeah.
that has not been maybe cleaned. I don't know at this point what hotels are doing. So 31% said lazy river, but only 16% definitely on a water slide.
Huh.
I think the thing you've got as well is if you're going into a swimming pool in any case, you're taking your life into your own hands whether you're going to catch something or not. So, coronavirus is just one of many things that you could potentially catch in a body of water that's had God knows how many people in it and kids and also, and I'll stop there.
The biofilm.
I agree. So, and speaking of kids, so this was one question since the respondents do tend to lean to an older demographic of this survey. I did specifically break this out to see the differential for households with children because I'm thinking older people are not likely to get on a water slide anyway.
Right.
But even with the households with children, only 24% said definitely to a water slide versus 41% to a lazy river.
So I wonder what it is about a water slide that makes people think. Oh, maybe it's the fact that you can't control your head going underwater.
Oh, I was thinking it was climbing up a ladder and having to hold.
Oh, see, I was picturing like a staircase type water slide, not a ladder type.
Yeah, unless it's the standing in line.
In line, yeah.
Oh, standing in line. Yeah.
Standing in line, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
the
like
water slide
lazy
is so
river, you got chlorinated water going
Yeah.
over those tubes and stuff. So like, I think most people look at that and are like, yeah, whatever. But
you're
yeah, maybe.
building people.
Yeah, but you're outside.
I call it. I think I'm going to go with the wedgie principle. You know, deep down, people don't like getting a wedgie.
Mhm.
I'm just picking something out of that.
Now, I would like to make it clear for anyone watching this, we are now wading into water activities. You should not enforce face masks in the pool. That's actually been outlawed by most nations. Waterboarding is illegal. It is a form of torture.
Did you read about the pool incident at the Hampton Inn? I'm sorry, I can't remember what state it was in, where an employee called the police.
Oh yeah, that's one of our rut
Oh,
rows. Yeah. That's just idiocy. That's
Yeah,
that's just stupidity, idiocy, and ignorance. It's
yeah.
I didn't
And
hear
the-
this one.
Go on, go on. For the
The,
break.
the employee said, you know, what did I do wrong? She really didn't understand what she did wrong. And I think that when you read deeper into the article, you know, she says, I saw two children swimming unsupervised. And that is what alerted me. If you can imagine that there were other African American people in that pool, hundreds of them over the time period that she may have worked at that Hampton Inn, that didn't get the cops called. But she, because of that situation, she was, it kind of sent up flags. But what she should have done, instead of just, oh, let me call the police and see why these people, I don't know if they're guests in the hotel. She should have gone up to the kids and said, hey kids, are you enjoying the pool? How's everything? I'm Adele. I'm I'm the manager here. Or hey, where's your mom? Kids are not allowed to swim in the pool without adult supervision. And they would have said, oh, that's your mom over there. And then engaged with her in a normal way. Hi, what's your name? And then she would see, don't ask her what her room number is. And she would see, yeah, that's a guest in our hotel, and everything would have been completely different.
normal.
And so I don't think that this was a person that is necessarily calling the police every time she saw a Black person in the pool. That doesn't make that's just not logical. But the way the whole thing happened was a mess because they weren't trained to facilitate happiness and comfort and taking care of people, and with a heart that is there to take care of guests. Instead, she was controlling the situation. And whenever you put your employees in a situation where they think their job is guard the company, control the situation, instead of empowering good things to happen, things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The answer should have been go to the kids, ask them where their adult is, and remedy the situation that way.
In a nice, gracious way,
Right.
because that's where your heart should be living.
Yep.
You're really smart, Adele. You're really smart.
It's true. But I mean, that's what Adele's been so successful at, is that you humanize the relationship.
And I mean, let's also be honest too. Why the heck would you call police
Exactly.
anyways?
I was just gonna
Because
say.
the police shouldn't be called to handle kids like that.
Well, it kind of goes to, this must be the same family of the two people that stood outside their house with their finger on the trigger of the gun, pointing at innocent people.
who are part of legal ethics committees, I think, in their state or in their
Yes. Not like they should know better, right? Now,
that was mad. That is honestly the kind of sensational reporting that we, and I speak for the rest of the world here, see on the news and think, God, I'm glad I've got a red passport. Because just marching past someone's house and a guy comes out like Rambo.
Yeah,
like a 90-year-old Rambo.
Yep.
And his wife carrying a handgun, just pointing it around willy-nilly at people.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the couple in Ozark that grow poppies on their farm.
Yeah.
And it's okay, mate. They can't leave their country right now. We're safe for a while.
For now.
Just for a few weeks. And
you know who
months,
we're sending
okay.
over as soon as that door opens? We're going to send some friends over.
Yeah. I
Hello to my little friend.
I do think that the case that you were talking about there, Adele, I think there's one huge thing that seems to be lacking in a lot of this, and it's a big, healthy dose of common sense.
Right.
You know, and whether that's an operational thing, whether employees don't feel empowered to be able to use or make those type of decisions, there must be something in the way that the whole situation is set up that a normal person, and I'm not saying that the lady there was abnormal, I'm just a normal response would be you have an escalation of processes, and usually to get to the process of calling the police, it's quite high up the list before you're having to call them.
Like threat of safety, which an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old are not a threat to safety. I'm sorry. In no book is an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old a threat to safety. And yeah, you go to the kids. Where's your parents? Where's your guardians? However you want to put it. Where's the adult making sure you don't die in my pool? Right. And that would have solved it,
But to Lily's point earlier on, everybody's at a fray point. But it goes back to training as well and education. And training isn't about rote, about learning process 1 to process 2 to process 3. It's about understanding why there's a process. Why do we escalate a conversation and not start at the top like she just did? Why is it that we try to evaluate the situation rather than make a decision as to what the situation is and act on our interpretation of it without all the facts? It's a learning process of the value of the process, not just knowing step 1 goes ahead of step 2, step 3, and so forth. And that's where this breaks down a lot, is you're not creating the humanization of, would you want to be treated the way you just got treated? Would you like to all of a sudden see the police show up and you don't know why you're talking to the police, only to find out that somebody misinterpreted what you were doing?
And you're a child. You shouldn't call the police on children.
Right.
I think that it's clearly one of two things, or a mixture of both, in that the lack of training that we've already mentioned, that is abundantly clear, but also probably a poor recruitment policy as well. There's some people that are built for customer services, and there's other people that they can do all right, but they're never really going to be, they're just not that type of person. They've not got the traits, and that's not a bad thing, because they're going to be absolutely exceptional at other things, like probably being a police officer.
And I didn't see how old the person was who was the employee, but I mean, it almost feels like they had to have been young, because even in anyone with any experience, you'd look at that and go, what's the end game of calling the police, right? What are you doing?
Or if there's a backstory as well, is it that this is constantly happening,
right?
And that there's children that are going in there all the time, and it's a problem with the property, and it's gone straight to escalation point as opposed to going through the steps. There's usually a backstory with most things.
Yeah. Trish, you just described my dancing skills. I love to try it, but I have to count when I do it. I'm not built for dancing. Love to do it, but unless I drink. If I drink, I'm a really excellent dancer.
I've seen you drink and dance.
I can rock it. Now, if I ask my wife, there might be a different interpretation to it. And she leaves when we dance. Just so you know.
I've just dropped in a link to the story we've been talking about into there on the CNN website, and it's the phone video of the associate about to call the police. Not only is it a very, very highly charged societal situation and a very highly charged micro situation, look at the employee. She's got a bandana on. Around her, like a face covering around her face. She looks like she's about to rob them. It must have been a really, really just a shit situation all round. You can bleep that one out, Lauren, if you want it. But you've got by the sound of the video, a woman with young children, a member of staff who doesn't look like she's got any support or backup or anybody to just sniff test what she's doing. Hey, there's a way to get an answer to a question without asking the actual question. Instead of saying, "Do you have a room here?" Where, as you guys said earlier, where are your parents? What are you doing? You know, who's here making sure you don't die in my damn pool?
Yeah. We want you to be safe. We don't say, can you indicate where your parents are at so we know that you're well protected or being watched over because we don't have a lifeguard. There's 1,000 rights and one wrong.
Yeah.
And she picked the one wrong.
And if you ask somebody what their name is, instead of asking what their room number is, like, "Hi, my name's Adele Gutman. What's your name?" And then, you can say, "Oh, one moment, please," and you're quickly checking, even though you don't, they don't have to know it, and confirming that person is a guest in the hotel, or maybe have a list of the guests, whatever. That it feels offensive, show me your key. What's your room number?
Right. You're challenging them, and not everybody likes to be challenged. I mean, if somebody walked up to me with a bandana on, and maybe her nameplate is on there or not, maybe she's not even wearing the logo shirt for all I know.
Let's be fair. Her shirt was untucked and non-logoed.
Okay. And somebody says, "What room are you in?" I'll be like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah. The worst part of this is that if you watch the video, 2 cops actually turn up. 2 cops turn up.
Well,
that's the maddest part.
That's how it works, by the way.
Yeah.
It's usually 2.
Well, they're nervous right now. They don't travel alone.
No, okay, sorry. So any amount of cops turned up. Maybe like one of a full SWAT van for some kids playing in a pool.
In a pool, yeah.
Like, damn, guys.
Yeah. Well, talk about bad training. I threw the other, just the rut row in it just to be done. That is the fail of that particular article about the sheets not being changed and being exposed that way. I think Ed on the Tinfoil Hat Society, you pointed out, it isn't that they were caught in a catch. It's like, that's just poor. Even before any of this was a problem, not changing sheets when you should be changing sheets. Really? I mean, that's just bad. That's being sloppy. I mean, it goes back to the same things where people discovered that they were wiping the toilet down. They used the same rag to wipe the glasses and put them back. That's just slop. That's just.
I'm wondering when they spray that, if it gets through down to the pillow itself or to the, whatever was underneath. And I'm just wondering,
No, there's actually new pillows out. There's new pillows and mattress covers that are barrier shields.
So if we're gonna keep talking about this, I'm gonna have to do this.
Biofilm. Yeah, where the pillows themselves, you can do the spray and it hits the surface of it for the biofilm, but it doesn't penetrate the pillow to be worried about. So, yeah,
I don't know if that's a good answer.
Well, it's supposed to be more preventative. I mean,
I would like my pillows to be not gross.
Well, it cleans the surface at the surface that anything that's contacted, supposedly.
But inside the pillow could be germs waiting to be expelled when I push on it.
Okay, Howard Hughes. Well, we are well past the bottom of the hour. Was there any other thing, Melissa, that we missed that you want to get in since we didn't give you absolutely any time at all to talk about anything?
I got the one question, actually 2 questions in that I needed to get in today. So,
and it only took you
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah. It's an
typical
hour
day. Typical day on the show. What the hell?
You did elicit some fantastic comments and conversation, though, Melissa. So I applaud you for a very
you can let Stuart know we prefer you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Easily. Matter of fact, we tell Stuart that. We just like
this is why I don't let my employees come on this.
Stuart, just send Melissa, please. It's okay. You don't have to be on. You're a busy man. Don't worry about it. You got things to do. Send Melissa.
He's on vacation this week, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
He's on vacation, is he? Is that why he's not turning up?
Yeah. He's taking a little Stewie time off with the fam and stuff like that, which is nice. He needs it because, from what I understand, Melissa, you guys are 1,000 miles an hour right now.
We are
Yeah,
so
so
busy.
Stewie time. Now he's got that image of the kid from Family Guy.
Yeah. What the deuce?
Stewie. Yeah.
What the deuce?
If Tim was here, he'd actually get the little image, whatever he's got of it.
Yeah.
Right now.
But congratulations to you guys with the platform and having the mobile keyless entry and so forth. I mean, how better to be in a sweet spot right now? I mean, congratulations to you guys for having the build that you have and the software that you have and the systems and so forth. Because
Timing is everything.
yeah, it is, right? right? So with that said, I guess we'll start with Adele. Adele, if people want to know more about you and how to contact you and so forth and everything you do, where can they find you?
Link in with me. It's /Hotel Adele, or look by my name, Adele Gutman Milne. And, or you can send me an email if you want to ask me anything regarding reputation and guest experience, Adele@aspirereputation.com.
We're going to remind Kat that you got to get on there for a webinar with them, because I think you would be freaking awesome to go over and tell them what they need to be focusing on. But yeah, definitely, because she's always looking for more web content. So definitely got to talk to her about it.
I will reach out to her.
Yeah, please do. Mr. Dean, the new creative genius to MetaSearch, the guru of all things MetaSearch. Where is it that people can find you, and what is it you're doing and all that cool stuff?
Great. So the quickest and easiest way to find me would be on LinkedIn. Of course, just look me up on LinkedIn under Dean Schmidt. Soon to be released to the websites at metasearchmarketing.com and basecampmeta.com. So pay attention and watch for those in the near future.
Outstanding. Trista, I know you're playing second fiddle to the 3. You're the 6, but, understand. I gave Ben grief when he first came on because he hadn't been showing up for the past couple weeks. I thought it was because he knew
I missed one show, Greg.
Okay.
I haven't the same show that you missed.
It made such an impact to me.
Yeah, but to be fair, Ben, you've been present, but not quite here.
One show, guys. One show. How quickly you
Ben, I'm with you, buddy, because Lauren didn't turn up for the same show. He turned up, he was lying down.
So shut your damn mouth.
Lauren came out of surgery and fell and still made the show.
I mean, now you're just making excuses up for why you're leaving. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I had to paddle uphill in the middle of winter on a frozen lake
Without a paddle.
Without a paddle, just my bare hands. Crawled. So, Chris, if you want to know more about you and 3 and 6,
they probably don't after this, but okay. Just need to point out that 6 is bigger than 3, and probably more waste. But you can get me again on LinkedIn. It's Tristan Hayward. Or alternatively, you can get me at tris.hayward@3and6.agency, and that's 3 and 6 all as letters.
And your Twitter is 36 Mafia, right?
No, not quite.
It is not. That's our youth outreach program. Feel free to follow them.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Ben. Other than being the cohort in crime of Mr. Tris, anything about 3 and 6 you want to throw in there, like how you dominate the world, save world peace, anything like that?
Well, I mean, we've only got a couple of hours left. There's lots of things coming. 3 and 6 is digital without dishonesty. That's how we're. That's how
I like that. I like that. That's cool.
Digital without dishonesty. No smoke, no mirrors, no attribution, voodoo, no look-back windows of 6 years. No, he once thought about a hotel. We'll take credit for that booking. We're trying to be a little bit different to the other marketing agencies out there. So, yeah,
so you're not using a lot of hospitality-centric architecture, then, are you?
We're trying to shy away from the more traditional, ways of things of operating. Yeah, you might say that.
Yeah, definitely. In contrast to the rest of most of the agencies out there right now, that's for sure.
Lots of tech in the works as well.
Yeah, Mr. Ed, you and Flip2.
Flip2, flip.to. You can find me on social media, Edward St. Ange. And Mr. Lauren Gray, who is your daddy and what does he do?
He's my daddy. We can't miss Melissa on this one either, but just make sure. But if you want to get this show and all previous 255 episodes of bantaming, dialogue, and quit-wit and insightful insights, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. And there you can see this and all previous shows, episode links to it as well. Also, we have a weekly podcast, Hospitality Marketing, that will go out shortly after this. To Lily's point, she has a revenue management one. And to Holly Zoba, she has a sales one. So if you're looking at the categories of, there are some pretty cool podcasts in each of the silos. But with that, we can't miss Melissa because we do have to tell about Fuel Travel and their award-winning podcast.
Award-winning podcast. You can find all things related to fuel and QD, including the podcast, the surveys, all the things, the mobile app and digital key at fueltravel.com. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn at Melissa Kavanaugh, and that's with a K, no U. And I'm on Twitter at MA Kavanaugh.
Outstanding. Everyone, thank you so much for everyone's time. As always, it's a joy. This is my therapy for the week. And I mean that beyond the physical therapy that I'm getting, which is personal torture, I found out. But this is my mental therapy for the week, being able to talk and learn from everybody. So thank you all very much. We look forward to joining everyone next week, Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, for episode number 257. I believe we might try to have an F&B person on with us, the executive chef of the Westin out of Denver, as to what they're doing, how they're doing, and what changes in their world has happened. So we might have some good F&B indication.
How they make souffles out there.
Or how they make souffles out there in the high altitude. Right, exactly.
There's a
Question everyone wants to know.
Yeah, inquiring minds want to know. So with that, thank you, everyone, and we look forward to next Friday. And Melissa, thank you for bringing the data, and look forward to the next iteration and so forth. We ran out of time for Stuart today. Sorry, Stuart, we couldn't have you join the show, but maybe next time. Maybe
maybe not.
Or maybe not. Maybe not. People from New Guinea always kind of take over the show, so we don't know if we want to come pop in on that.
Guys, I'm back. Did you all miss me?
Sounds just like him.
Oh my gosh!
You love you soon.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see everyone next week.
Happy 4th of
Hamilton
July.
Day.
Happy Saturday, as it's going to be for us.
There you go. Happy Saturday.
Bye, guys.
Everyone.
Bye.